What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to another daily creative reading. Different setting because I finally moved. Things are settled in. And so it's, like I said, different setting, but we're getting there. So let's dive in. I've already set some intentions and watching the beautiful lunar eclipse this morning. So that's my room, but the window goes out to the west. So I watch the sun set pretty much every day lately. It's been beautiful. So yeah, so thank you for your patience while I got a little bit of my ducks in a row, proverbially speaking. I feel like I can't stay away from tarot for too long. It's just the funny part about it. Like once you start and you just like, it's something that's part of what you do, you can be many things. You can do a lot of different things, but this is something that's just part of me. So yeah, let's dive in though and see where the day takes us. So starting with the Moonology deck in celebration of the beautiful lunar eclipse this morning. And you might hear some rustling. That's my roommate's cat, Ella. Very cute. Yeah. So Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives for, my days are all mixed up. This is for the 9th. Oh gosh. Moving makes you feel like, and moving just kind of makes you feel like everything gets upended and all of that stuff, but it's such a beautiful space. So I'll be doing different readings around the apartment and whatnot, just, to keep things fresh, but you'll see more of it. So we're starting with Nothing Is Yet Set in Stone, Mutable Moon. I don't know if you can see that. Ugh. Mutable Moon. Nothing is yet set in stone. I wonder, I'm hearing Gemini and Mars because I know Gemini is a mutable sign. So I'm wondering, there might be Gemini in your chart that's particularly activated. We also have expect powerful change, new moon eclipse. I'm going to be working on a better audio and like AV setup and all that. So just bear with the sound quality being what it is. But nonetheless, so expect powerful change. Nothing is yet set in stone. Expect powerful change and have faith in your dreams. Waxing crescent moon. And there's a butterfly and or moth here, as well as some pollinators on this card. You can't quite see it. Maybe you can. It's almost like there's like this call to be flexible and to focus on what's at the core of your dreams and dreaming, right? There's this sense of, I want to say like a certain sense of freedom, but freedom from what is really, I think I'm hearing that's the mutable part. And when you sit in the space of flexibility, when you sit in the space of flexibility in that nothing is yet set in stone, you begin to realize that there's so much you can do, there's so much that's possible, and it's living, instead of, it's almost like the liminality, but the liminality is where the possibility really comes to life, right? So let's see where else we go here. Spirit, what additional messages do you have for my daily creatives? So we have the Chariot, so let me move these over. That's your call to adventure. It's like following your heart's desire is what I heard. The Chariot, following your heart's desire. And maybe it's about being flexible about the vehicular methodology that you take or that's used to get to where you want to go. Page of Swords. I feel like maybe there's research required. That's what I just heard. Maybe you're in school. Maybe you're in school. Research is required. Page of Swords. I almost feel like it's like outside looking in. Like that's a little bit of your refusal. Is like maybe you're accustomed to being outside looking in with this Page of Swords. And because you're kind of looking at the Chariot here, I'll move it down so you can kind of see what I see, right? The Page of Swords is looking at the Chariot. Like there's this sense of paying attention, yes, paying attention, but also it's like outside looking in. And then it's like your emotions almost are outside of yourself. There's like defense mechanisms I'm getting to on the Page of Swords, like the behaviors that we take on to push away things that are evident to us or that we know we need to do, that kind of idea. But the Chariot is more of an emotional knowing, right? And I feel like maybe there was a bit of getting out of your own way, because you're outside, like you're looking outside of yourself. But the King of Cups is an energy of very much being within yourself, water sign energy as well. So Cancer, we have a good blend of like some strong water here with Cancerian energy, and King of Cups I tend to see as Scorpio energy, but I know that other people read it differently, just strong water. So we have the Hierophant, the thing that could become a tower if it goes unchecked, which is, it's almost like clinging to what you've always known, clinging too tightly to what you've always known here. And that's where this like changes happen when it's not about when we least expect it. It's when we're least attached to the outcome, when we're least attached to what needs to happen in order for us to heal, in order for us to grow, that kind of idea. So my ear's ringing. That hasn't happened for a while. So I missed doing tarot so much. I know, like, I had to move, and that was just this 3-day process in this brilliant apartment. It fit beautifully, like right down to the point where my roommate is a fan of the Colorado Avalanche. How could there's no way that you could even fathom that. That's all spirit. But nonetheless, the Hierophant could become a tower. I'm hearing higher unlearning as well. There could be an aspect of things that you're unlearning through this eclipse season. Like I'm seeing like tending to a garden and doing some weeding. Somebody could be gardening, could be gardener that I'm talking to, or that's prioritized in this reading. But again, nothing's yet set in stone. And that's where maybe you're caught up in the research of things, right? The Page of Swords is, I see it as like the sort of research card, outside looking in, pulling in outside information. It's also a messenger card too, but there's a lot of water. The imagery is beautiful. I'm going to try and do this without falling off the stool. There's a lot of beautiful water here, right? And I just feel like it's like nothing is yet set in stone. So enjoy the sound of the waves, as opposed to standing at the shore and saying, well, I want this type of water. I want this type of surface. I want it to be like glass. But, you know, understanding that the waves are making things happen. Maybe you're making waves. I don't know. There's I'm getting like a lot of spiritual leadership here. The Hierophant tends to mean that, but what I'm also getting is that there's with the Chariot, the King of Cups, and the Hierophant, it's almost like you're pulling in information. Perhaps you're taking the lead with your own emotions. That could be it. This could also definitely relate to the Taurus lunar eclipse, because Taurian energy is here, and we do have an eclipse energy. It's new moon, but still, I think the Hierophant here, you know, that higher unlearning, like if you cling to things too tightly, it's not that you can't learn, because you do. We learn all the time, right? Regardless, like we're always learning. But I think that what's coming through here for me really profoundly is that there may be structures and systems that we're seeking information from to guide us that are not necessarily unhelpful, but this is where the unlearning comes in, because the attachments that we make to them to guide us, how are we using those? And is it in service to our emotions and movement forward with the Chariot? Is it in service to movement forward, or are we using them in a way that propels us? You know, it's a propulsion, right? Like I think about the waves churning up. I think about these waves sort of churning up the waters underneath or beneath a boat. And like the wake, Wayne Dyer talks about the wake that we leave behind, and like thinking about thoughts in terms of the wake, right? Like it's not the thought itself. This is how it's coming through. It's not necessarily how Wayne talked about it, but it's sort of like looking at the wake of the boat and understanding there's a certain momentum and letting that carry you, but also understanding the trail that your thoughts leave behind, and not confusing. This is part of the higher unlearning here, like not confusing the wake for the thought itself. It's understanding the way that they interplay together, right? It's almost like a cause and effect energy. But there's a lot of emotional energy here. Let's see what your protagonist energy is. Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives, please? 7 of Cups. More water energy. I feel like the 7 of Cups and the protagonist energy represents almost a kind of abundance. It's an abundance of options. And your antagonist energy is feeling like you don't have any, or feeling like you're limited to one in particular. And the Knight of Cups tends to represent an outside offering or love, but this can also represent, to me, an offering that kind of makes your heart sing. So to use an example with looking for this apartment, for example, there were a lot of different options, right? And if I had jumped at the first one because I thought that there would be no others, because I thought that there would, because I wasn't allowing myself to see within, to understand that it wasn't just the one, right? That's where it's like limiting yourself. I would have missed out on the opportunity for this, to have this wonderful roommate that I do, and also to have this wonderful apartment as a space to live, right? So I think it's like saying, don't, this is also, it's like a call to not jump at things because you assume you don't know, like this Two of Swords, like don't jump into things because you're like, well, I don't have the answer to that question, so I have to act to find the answer. I think the abundance of waters, let the answer come to you, not because you're being obstinate or stubborn. There's Ella. My roommate's cat loves my room. She loves hanging out in there. She's very sweet. But I think that if you limit yourself, and that's really how, even the Seven of Cups, it's like an abundance card to me, an emotional abundance card. Some people say it's illusion and all of that, but the way it's coming through in a protagonist sense, it would be an abundance of options. 1111 was just on the time. It would be an abundance of options, an abundance of choice, where maybe you felt like you didn't have much or have many or any. But that's where it's like you have to pull out of the thinking of that and open up to a much wider emotional expanse, right? Because if you're always looking to outside sources for your internal compass, it will just not work. It will not work. Yeah, that'll be the end result. It'll mess with your emotions and your emotional energy. I'm going to put that there. Maybe that's the, okay. I'm going to get one more on the challenge because I just feel the pull. The Sun is the overcoming. So the challenge is worry. It's almost like a lot of this is happening inside of you. Like I see this, nothing is yet set in stone. Maybe you feel like you can't, like there's an instability within you where it's like making a choice is difficult because it's like it's set in stone, and like stone, right? This is granite, but it's like stone, right? So you feel like you can't, like maybe you feel like there's like a sword in the stone moment, right? But I feel like the Nine of Swords as the challenge is telling me a little bit that there's a sense of, I mean, there's obviously worry and stress, that's the challenge, but it's almost like this internal energy with your thoughts. Like, does the external reality of abundance that you're seeing, is the illusion there? Like, do you see it as abundance? Or do you see it as something that binds you, that constricts your energy, that limits you? And it's such an interesting thing because if we haven't done the work to really unlearn that, right? Maybe that's part of this lunar eclipse energy, things that are being cleared for you, right? Because expect powerful change. Like maybe you're more in the driver's seat than you realize, but the bigger story here is the capacity and potential you have to overcome the challenges that you feel. And it's all up here, right? It's all up here because I feel like you're pulling in information about your emotions from the outside, Page of Swords, outside in. And it's like you're in this King of Cups position. So you have this abundance of emotion. You have this abundance of awareness and knowledge of self. And then also the capacity to do something with that and mobilize that in service to whatever you're working on. But there's a way that it gets bound up where it's like maybe there's a feeling and it's, you know, nothing is yet set in stone. Maybe it's not about missing out. I'm not getting FOMO. I think it's like leaning into the joys of missing out, maybe JOMO as opposed to FOMO. Temperance. Patience, young grasshopper is what I just heard. Yeah, 10 of Wands. Maybe it feels like maybe there's something here that's felt unbearable or just untenable. Like it doesn't work anymore. And you've needed to, it's not like putting heavy things down, but in a way it is, but it's like you're choosing. We're always choosing. Every day we're choosing, and indecision is a decision too, right? And sometimes people will expect you to make 200 decisions at once. And, you know, sometimes you can only do one thing at a time because your energy can only handle that. So it's about also having patience with yourself, the Temperance card, where if you are carrying a great deal, it's about prioritizing rest. It's about prioritizing your inner wisdom to help you stay on the path for you. And also not letting things get in the way, like providing yourself your own sense of justice is Libran energy. Providing yourself your own sense of justice where you're not clinging to other people's opinions, because the Page of Swords, external information about our emotions in particular, can represent other people's opinions. Like, what's the feedback in the room? What's the read that I'm getting about my emotions? No, go within. It doesn't matter what other people think. Like, they're gonna have an opinion regardless, right? They're like, you know, they're like belly buttons. Like, everybody's gonna have an opinion on that. Most people have one, so yeah, they're gonna have opinions. Six of Cups, wow, some soul bond energy, soulmate energy. Could also represent just a sort of return to innocence. I think that that's the main theme here, is like a return to innocence. And doesn't that have so much to do with our emotional capacity? Doesn't that though? Like, just, it has so much to do with our emotional capacity, and not just intention, but how we show up is always inflected by the depth of what we're willing to feel. I'm just gonna take a sip of coffee. It's always inflected by the depth of what we're willing to feel, right? And there's a lot of water energy here, even transmutation, right? The sort of alchemical process of taking a fiery exhaustion and turning it into something much softer. That's the Ten of Wands and Temperance. That's what I'm getting here. So I feel like this is an incredible shift and change that's happening for you right now. And again, like, that is true of the eclipse season, right? And the fixed signs, Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo, have been, you know, feeling it more in all likelihood, depending on your other placements, right? I'm going to pull one more to clarify this Six of Cups before pulling some oracle cards. Ace of Wands. And that's how the new gets in. Yeah. I think that this is like, it's like you have to soften a little bit more, right? I almost feel like this is like the sword and the stone. That's the vibe that I'm getting, right? Like, you know, only one person can do this, and you're looking outside of you for these things as though that's the power that's going to pull the sword from the stone. But the truth is that the call's coming from inside the house, and there's so much happiness here. The overcoming is beautiful, but it's almost like when I hear people say, but you have to let it be beautiful, that can be frustrating because it's so nebulous. But the reality here, the sort of prescriptive, or the, you know, the gift, should you choose to accept it, is your emotions. You know, life is going to be really frustrating. Ten of Wands, it can be really frustrating. And especially if we're kind of clinging to things that no longer serve us. Like, why do we choose these beliefs? Who chose them for us, right? Who chose them for us? What parts of our path dictated that those are the pillars of wisdom by which we have to live? Those institutions, the institutions that live inside us, the ways that we've internalized those systems and structures, right? How have they functioned and operated in our lives, right? But I feel like upon the softening, it's like you're going to see what might have, the energy that was very frustrated in this Ten of Wands, it's like it starts to emerge into possibility. What was frustrating, where frustration lived, you may begin to see opportunity. Where frustration set up shop, you may find this expansion, this beautiful expansion of the heart space. And I think that it's not to say that can't happen without that release, but I feel like there's, you know, it's a beautiful opportunity to ride the wave of this energy, and to in terms of the eclipses, specifically the lunar eclipse when I'm filming this, and to really allow yourself not just to feel, but sometimes, so this is the other thing too, right? That I've been kind of calling myself into with this, but it's just allowing yourself to relax, allowing yourself to relax, because perhaps, you know, there are different things or ways that you've been working that you don't need to anymore, right? Maybe you don't need to do those things anymore. And I think there's a certain power in that, because when you are clinging to it, it can be processes that make you feel worried, like the ways that you've operated before. If you don't operate on those same ways ongoing, 1919 was just on the time. The ways that you've operated before, if you don't keep on going in those same ways, how will you know where you are? Well, I feel like the new story being written is one where your signposts and guideposts are joy. I'm gonna move this over here just so it doesn't, yeah, there we go. My little green candle, I love it so much. There's like so many different smells that I can have now, because where I was living before, there were certain smell sensitivities. So it's like I can have these beautiful candles. It's so lovely. I'm in my Taurus, as it were. But the Sun card here is saying that there's a new compass, but it's also so connected to your emotions. And, you know, the other thing too is that when you've had to push your emotions away because of situations that had become untenable, 10 of Wands, right? When you have to push emotions away because of that, what can sometimes happen is you don't just disconnect from your intuition. In a sense, you become really ungrounded because there's an instability, right? And Taurus is this grounding energy. And perhaps that's where it's like the unlearning process isn't just about knowledge. It's about grounding, right? It's about understanding where you are and allowing yourself, like, do you move the goalposts on yourself? Right? I've experienced this with other people, but then sometimes we just adopt that behavior because we get used to it, right? So we move the goalposts on ourselves so that we, you know, well, the goal is there and we reach it, but then we don't really celebrate it and allow ourselves to sink into the achievement of the thing. Not to say do it for the applause, because that's not quite the thing that I'm talking about here, but I'm talking about where we achieve something and then we're just on to the next thing. Like, we don't stop for a second to say, wow, that was actually really incredible that I did that with X amount of resources, with this knowledge, or in this timeline, or that I did it this way, right? So, and even with school, like I remember being in grad school, and a lot of the time it would be like you'd finish one assignment and then you'd go right to the next, right? It would be one to the next, to the next, to the next. So it wouldn't even be, you wouldn't even have a chance to really sink into the accomplishment of a specific assignment. It would be just right into the next one. So sometimes that can be a pace that we adopt. But the question is, do we need to, right? Do we need to? And does it truly serve our highest good? And that's where this higher unlearning is coming into play, right? Speaking to your higher self more. You know, what's the deal here? Like, do I need to be this way? Does it have to be this way? And if not, what can then take its place? And I think this is sort of like, it can feel worrisome when we're in the midst of looking for something to fill the space, that an energy that was quite either consuming, like it was, you know, all consuming. And doubt is very consuming. Doubt consumes you. It can be, I want to say vacuous, but it can do that, where it sucks the air out of our lungs so that we feel like it's hard to breathe. And we look outside of ourselves and see 10 of Wands. We see this frustration. We see all these different things. And then when we take a step back and really look at that, what we're seeing is not frustration with circumstances, but I think it's, you know, when we take a step into accountability, we can see that it's frustration with how we are doing things for ourselves. And that's the real gift, right? Is that it's not just self-awareness, it's also accepting responsibility for where we could have made things easier on ourselves, but we did not. And that too, I think, is part of this, right? So it's understanding that, you know, the energy that something occupied, it may feel like there's something that's missing, or you may feel this sense of shaky ground that you're on, but the call is to reground. The call is to sink into that and just be present for that, and understand that it's an emotion and not the whole situation. If there is something that you're particularly worried about with this, I feel like the path through it is looking at all of the options that you have available to you to make decisions, to I guess stand in your power and claim your power. Don't be afraid of being powerful. Don't be afraid of and also, it doesn't have to be a struggle, right? The struggle doesn't dictate success. I was watching, it was on Instagram, and Eliza Kelly talked about how, like, manifesting during an eclipse season can be chaotic. And I, having moved into a beautiful apartment during an eclipse season, I can say it's the real deal. It's true. It can be, there are, you know, and it wasn't ideal, but it had to happen, right? So moving had to happen. But, I think that sometimes there can be a sense of, like, find the eye of your hurricane and stay there, and that can be what this is too. Nine of Swords is the sort of main obstacle, and the Sun is the overcoming. But I think the main part to realize is that you may be more powerful than you know, and I think you're waking up to this, because the same power that was just frustrated by circumstances, where energy was just being used to survive. 10 of Wands strikes me as a survival energy. The Temperance card here is saying, have a little bit more compassion for yourself and be more patient with yourself, right? Be gentle with yourself. There's a process that's happening within you where you're gaining your sea legs. Maybe some of you live near the ocean, I don't know. But I feel like there's a lot that you're waking up to about yourself, and specifically emotionally. I mean, like, the swords here, the Two of Swords are here, but the water in the background tells me a lot about emotions that you're waking up to, but also tells me about a need to go within. And within is where our emotions live, right? It's also connected to intuition on the Knight of Cups here, right? I think that this is maybe looking as well, if I pull back and look at this thematically, it can also be being so close up to the, it's not seeing the forest for the trees. My cat just got the zoomies. It's seeing that, not seeing the, you know, you're focused on one tree as opposed to pulling back and seeing the forest therein, right? And seeing the forest for all that's there, and the beauty of that and the abundance of that, right? Because and this can also be feeling like you're gonna, like, opportunities are gonna pass you by, but the thing is that they do every day. The ones that aren't right for you do. So, you know, it's like, that's another way that we can sort of work against our best self and our best outcome and our highest good, because we believe that we have to do something or be someone or be somewhere else or other than where we are, because that's something that is so wrong that we can't just be there. We can't just be present and enjoy. You know, when I was moving, I called one of my friends just because I had a moment of frustration. And, you know, he said, you know, moving day, he just knows it's stressful. And he was like, you know, maybe just enjoy where you are, enjoy it. And that just, it stuck with me, because I was like, wow, I wasn't enjoying it. Moving is not necessarily fun for the lifting that you have to do. I still have like these like random marks and bruises on my arm from moving, but it's like, enjoy it, enjoy it. You know, the drives to and from locations with, you know, a carload of things. There's so much to be grateful for. Wow, I have a car that fits all this stuff. I have enough money to put gas in the tank. I am moving to a new place that's beautiful. I mean, all you can see is a granite countertop and a very cute picture right here of some penguins, but, right, it's a beautiful space. And it's very walkable. It's excellent. But the point that I'm making here is there's so much to be grateful for moment to moment, right? So in the manifesting process and getting to where you want to be, because that's the call here. You are headed in the direction of where you want to go with the Chariot. That's like forward movement, but it's emotional movement, or things that are significantly shaped or affected. Affect is emotion, right? AFFECT. Affect is emotion, right? You know, and not just like affected, but affect is that emotional realm. And I feel as though that's kind of the Chariot's thing, right? We can't engage in the world around us without that hue of affect, right? And the effect of that is that you really have an opportunity to rewrite the rules of the pillars by which you're kind of getting by right now, and getting by, or survivance, I'm hearing. It's more of an academic term, survivance, but it's super cool nonetheless. So if you're a word nerd like me, that's a good one to look up. But I feel like right now you're coming back into balance, or there are situations that will invite you back into balance ever so gently, because the cups are this like gentle pull. It's the intuitive call, right? It's this, you know, and this space that is freed up by allowing yourself to go with the flow, even if it's change on a grand scale. You know, it's listening to the little inklings of things that say, hey, why don't you go for a walk? Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you sort through this? Why don't you look at this? Why don't you go here? Follow those, because those are not just superfluous injectures into your day by spirit. You know, sometimes it is just to make you smile, but other times it leads you to one thing, to the next, to the next, to the next, right? I've been listening to a lot of Sonia Choquette's work. I have John Holland is on my to-read list after this. After I'm done with that one in particular, I'm rereading Trust Your Vibes, and my audiobook that I listen to while I drive right now is Ask Your Guides. So, you know, but one of the things that it talks about is just that there's like this breadcrumb trail that spirit leaves, and it's not always going to lead to these like life-altering things, but it's the kind of cumulative effect, right? It's the cumulative effect. Because as much as, and I think this is, you know, the Seven of Cups can represent illusion on the one hand, but it can also represent the cumulative effect of the decisions that we make and how emotionally connected or disconnected we are. Because we can see abundance of opportunity, or we can see a whole lot of illusion and problem, right? Because if we're disconnected from ourself and our emotions, our King of Cups, if we're disconnected from that, it's not going to come together in a very peaceable way for us. Okay, so I feel like there's so much here, but I feel like honestly, there's this softening and there's new opportunities coming in for you, not just to know yourself, not just to know yourself, but to know your priorities, to reprioritize. And that's super exciting, right? To reprioritize. And I think here, the big thing is to have faith in your dreams. Directly from the card, it says it right on the card. So it's not so much an intuitive message, but the intuitive part for me is having faith in your dreams has a lot to do with a sort of return to innocence, because it's really hard to have faith in yourself and in your dreams, right? Six of Cups and Ace of Wands. The things that keep you up at night, not for worry, but for joy, right? Where, I have you can't see it because it's in the back there, but I have my writing desk back and I'm so excited. Just the feel of the wood under my hands. And it's that place where I did so much writing before, and I've started to clear that and just really sit with it. And it's just been such a delight to get back into that energy and feel the call to put words and pen to paper in a way that is creative as opposed to just for a specific purpose, right? Nonetheless, though, it's like that sort of return to an innocence, return to maybe a dream you had. I think about it in terms of writing for me, but whatever that means for you, because that's what these eclipses can do too. They can clear the path. They can clear the path, and we've had a lot of retrogrades in this time period as well. And that doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. The Mercury retrograde did, it did come for some people, myself included a little bit, but what that energy does is it just calls us to reflect, right? It's a reflecting energy. Although sometimes I'm hearing the sound of shoes in a dryer. So it can maybe sound like that a little bit internally. But I think the return to innocence is the deep connection to your dreams. And this could also just be clearing the path of beliefs that you have about looking outside of yourself, in terms of the Page of Swords, looking outside of yourself and unlearning the ways that you've sought external validation for something that's a very internal process, emotions, right? And the way that operates will then become the way that you are able to access your dreams, the way that you're able to access these parts of you that are really important to you in terms of your dreamscapes, your ambitionscapes, how those all play together as well. So I think this is a time of powerful change. And I think that the call here is not just, we can say release, but I think it's about releasing your expectations and maybe being a little bit kinder to yourself and asking yourself how you feel about the things happening around you and being present enough to hear the answer to that. Because, so too does guidance. That's where guidance lives as well, right? That's where a lot of different, your power rests too. So let's pull from, I'm going to pull from the Universe's Got Your Back card deck here. Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives, please? Messages for my daily creatives. This is loud. I'm hearing wisdom shared is something gained, like wisdom shared is community gained, wisdom shared is blank gained. I don't know who that's for, what that's about, but wisdom shared. That might be the title of this reading. When I lean on the faith of the universe, peace becomes real. When I lean on the faith of the universe, peace becomes real. I love that. A little bit of lavender in the card too, which makes me smile. There we go. I don't know if you can see it, but. And of course, Notes from the Universe by Mike Dooley. Let's take a look here. Oh, that was easy. Don't be misled. Oh, the eclipse is funny. Don't be misled. That could be also like, don't be misled about the source of your peace, right? Like it's in, the call comes from within the house, and that seems quite obvious. But I think that for, through the pandemic, we've gotten accustomed to looking outside of ourselves, right? Not just for the news, but like, how should we react to something, right? It's like reclaiming a sense of personal sovereignty as well. That's kind of what I'm feeling here, because that's also a sense of peace, right? Like when you can reclaim that space and that time for yourself. Maxine, reclaiming my time. But it's, but it's like when you can reclaim that space for yourself, that's what peace is, right? So I think it's also, it's kind of about personal sovereignty as well. And maybe that's where it's like, it's like untangling your emotions so that you can reclaim that. And that may be this sense of independence, right? Because we think independence is sometimes, you know, it is the ability to do things on your own and that sense of freedom. But sometimes there's a sovereignty that we miss as the underpinning concept that sort of, it's like it buttresses everything else. So it holds it all together. And I think that could be this reclaiming of sovereignty and a returning to something, returning to an innocence that just like blows open the door on opportunities, right? Expect powerful change. That's a good thing. I feel like that's a good thing with these here. That is a good thing. Have faith in your dreams. These are all really positive things. Maybe you do, you know, with the abundance of cups here, maybe dreams are one of your psychic gifts, right? You know, it could be dreams and dreaming, could be astral travel, something along those lines. But I'm going to pull one more from here. Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives? Just to close out this reading. One more. See me in their eyes. See me in their eyes. And this is, I think this is a little bit of, so I'm looking at the Seven of Cups as I see this and I'm smiling because I'm like, haha, Spirit's so funny. Where it's like, see me in their eyes, like look at yourself through the eyes of the opportunities before you, right? And I say that because sometimes we talk ourselves out of the choices available to us because it's not that we don't trust them fully. It's that we don't trust that we're worthy of them. We don't trust that there's something of value in us that can contribute or be in conversation with those things energetically. So we push them away, right? We push them away. And I think see me in their eyes, it's kind of a linguistic turn of phrase on that. I'll read the back to you though. Whenever conferring with another, either face to face or across the miles, whether a human being, departed spirit, or sentient tree, always speak to the highest within them. It makes such a difference. And that's it. Like even the opportunities that you have, what if they spoke to the highest part of you? What would they say, right? How would they knock gently at your door? And seeing it through the eyes of your higher self, as opposed to through the ego's drama story, right? As opposed to through the ego's, it's almost like compulsion. Because I feel like the ego is a thing of compulsion, right? Like it's like, oh, I have to be doing something always. I have to be doing, and just let yourself be. Let yourself be for a minute, and that's where you begin to hear the higher part of you speak through opportunities around you. So just give yourself that time too. Give yourself that time, because I feel like this is just this beautiful energetic fertility. Like it's this fertile place energetically speaking for us right now as a collective. And I think that things are happening that are really bringing to the fore, you know, here in Ontario, at least, we just had a lot of talk of like several unions possibly going on strike. And the talk of a general strike because of a law that was passed that would, you know, infringe upon, different rights and things like that. And it's like, again, you know, it's, of course that would happen during an eclipse because it's like calling into question what we value, right? It's like highlighting those things and bringing forward this energy. And I think that the power here for the collective is not to react, is to look and notice. It's to see and notice. It's observe, don't absorb, right? Ask yourself, does this need to be mine to carry? Does this need to be mine to react to? I had a moment where I was like, oh, and I, you know, reacted to it a little bit, but then I was like pulling back. I'm like, no, I don't know what the purpose of this is yet. I can't really, you know, and just noticing the ways that you might react and then allowing yourself the flexibility to do what you need to do with that. So this is a very long reading, but I wanted to do one nonetheless. My daily creatives are quite long, so that's fine. Well, it's okay. But yeah, and so from my new space, thank you for watching. So I really appreciate you and your eyes and your time. So thank you so much for that. And as always, wherever this finds you on the time space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night. I hope it finds you very, very well, my friends. Take care.